AOC put on a display reminiscent of her previous boss, Joe Biden, in Germany this week. The Democratic congresswoman humiliated herself in front of world leaders on numerous occasions during the week, the most recent of which left US Vice President J.D. Vance in hysterics.
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States.
Martha, you bring me on your show and you show me the most uncomfortable 20 seconds of television I've ever seen. My takeaway from that.
What happened there? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a person who doesn't know what she actually thinks. And I've seen this way too much in Washington with politicians where they are given lines. And when you ask them to go outside the lines they were given, they completely fall apart because, look, does anybody really believe that AOC has very thoughtful ideas about the global world order or about what the United States should do with our policy in Asia or our policy in Europe? No, this is a person who is mouthing the slogans that somebody else gave her. And it
I guess
shows
no one gave her one for that one.
I guess not. And it shows how thin the Democrats' policy actually is on all these very, very important questions. Look, that was embarrassing. If I had given that answer, I would say, you know what, maybe I ought to go read a book about China and Taiwan before I go out on the world stage again. I hope that Congresswoman Cortez has the same humility. I'm skeptical.
But this was far from the only fumble for AOC at the Munich Security Conference. She was ridiculed just days ago for her lack of knowledge about Latino history.
Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word on that.
Online commentators launched at her for this response, with this person saying, "Dear AOC, Mexico was colonized by Spain. Spain brought horses, cattle, and ranching to Mexico. In Spanish, we call them vaqueros. You're welcome for the correct information, a MAGA Latina." AOC then made another embarrassing geographical blunder by saying Venezuela is below the equator.
You know, we look at what happened in Venezuela, for example. It is not a, it is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator. And
She then went on to blast Marco Rubio after he gave what many are saying the best speech of his career.
But, I think it's also important to note how thin that foundation is. Culture is changing. Culture always changed. Culture for the entire history of human civilization has been a fluid, evolving thing that is a response to the conditions that we live in. And so they want to take this mantle of culture. At the end of the day, though, it is very thin. And so the response that we have to have is, again, it's material, it's class-based, it's common interest. There was certainly more openness to what I was saying than probably there would be in years past. We can't underestimate the appeal of going back to these well-worn grooves. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about a class-based internationalist perspective also means ending the hypocrisy towards the global South.
CNN's Scott Jennings blasted AOC, saying there's only one adult political party in the US right now.
The conference put on full blast the fact that we've only got one adult political party in the United States right now, and it's the Republican Party. Marco Rubio gave the speech of a lifetime over there. He laid out a clear foreign policy vision that defends Western values and Western civilization. And the brightest Democrat over there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, crapped the bed, okay? She wants to be president, she wants to run, and she's one of the most popular Democrats and gave one of the most embarrassing performances you could possibly do. Gretchen Whitmer, one of the governors that Bakari is touting, said she knows even less about foreign policy than AOC, and Gavin Newsom has repeatedly embarrassed himself every time he's gone to one of these international conferences, whether it was Davos a few weeks ago or Munich. He can't even rebuild a single house in the Palisades in Los Angeles. In California, people are running out of there like crazy right now. The bottom line is this: these international conferences have been a disaster for Dems, and they have showed Republicans, in the name of Marco Rubio this time around, to be adults who have a clear-eyed view of what the United States has to do in the future.
But conservative commentator Ben Shapiro didn't have sympathy for the congresswoman, saying she has only herself to blame for her lack of preparation.
Well, I mean, it's not our fault for noticing that she was horrible. My favorite conceit here is that she goes abroad, she says a bunch of incredibly stupid things, and that's leaving aside her general message, which was that there has to be class solidarity across countries between people who are poor and people who are rich. But put that aside. I'm sorry, but if you proceed to give an answer reminiscent of that famous clip of Miss South Carolina attempting to answer a question about the Iraq War from 15 years ago, and you're on a international stage, that is your fault, right? She apparently prepared for this for months. According to Politico, she'd had multiple sessions with Matt Duss, who is Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor. Leave aside the advisability or inadvisability of going to Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor for your actual takes on the world. The fact that AOC spent months preparing for this and then proceeded to fall all over herself on basic questions and to place Venezuela below the equator, again, that is your fault, lady. It's nobody else's fault. You were the one who went, and obviously, look, she was taking her 2028 bike out for a spin. She hit the embankment, she flipped head over heels and went all the way down the mountain. It's her fault.
And the criticism didn't stop there. US President Donald Trump blasted AOC's performance, saying it was not a good look for the United States.
By the way, I watched AOC answering questions in Munich. This was not a good look for the United States. I watched Gavin Newsom answering questions in Munich, and this was a bad look for our country. These two people are incompetent. And at least Hillary's competent. She's just Trump deranged. She was so deranged. She is an angry woman. But I watched the other two speaking and answering basic questions. Look, Gavin has destroyed California. And AOC, I never heard her speak very much. And they started answering questions. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea how to answer, very important questions concerning the world. But she can't answer questions concerning New York City either, because New York City is got some problems.
Surprisingly, it wasn't even just conservatives bashing AOC. Even her own allies in the progressive mainstream media and Democratic Party were not impressed.
And the bashing is coming in a bipartisan way. Here's former ABC News journalist Mark Halperin.
It takes a major screw up for the New York Times to put in their story about AOC that she had, I think they said it was a stumble or something. It has to be a really bad stumble. She has no feeling in her bones about Taiwan. She just thought, well, I'll go with the memorized answer. And I don't think even the Democratic Party will make somebody the nominee if they can't answer that question.
She didn't go with a memorized answer. Democrat strategist Dan Turrentine here.
It was a reminder of you're now on the big stage. Her team hyped her appearance. She froze like a deer in headlights.
And this tough assessment from a veteran New York Democrat strategist, here's the quote: "It was a beauty pageant to show that she had some chops about international issues, and she showed a complete lack of chops." He goes on to say if she runs for president, quote, "she's now given the opposition tons of ammunition to destroy her."
But whilst commentators on both sides are criticizing AOC, she seems blissfully unaware of her failures in Munich. She said, "We exposed the global far-right's playbook at Munich and how to stop them." Right on cue, Rubio beeline from his revisionist MAGA speech at MSC to boost Orban in Hungary's elections. "We must wake up before it's too late. A working class politics can defeat authoritarianism.